Okay, Lane is just called. She's going to be a few minutes late, so I thought we'd get things started. If we could all stand, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. As I said, Elaine will be here in a few minutes. We'll just get things started. Joe, are you ready?
I am ready. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's nice to see everybody. I'd like to first take a few minutes to kind of explain where we were in 2016 so you can understand the volume that we've seen over the last couple years. To start, January 2017 was our busiest month on record. We did 420 calls, 420 emergency calls. We were able to cover 96% of that call volume. That is largely having a combination of both paid and volunteer members who are helping us upstaff during busy times during the day. Currently, our operation, as you may remember, we did go for a 5th ambulance license after the ambulance that we had this summer had electrical fire in it. We were able to secure a 5th ambulance license, and we're currently operating, soon to be operating 5 ambulances. We're just going through the final inspection process with the 5th ambulance. We also will be adding a 2nd paramedic fly car to our rotation. Again, it's going through the final stages of state inspection, so we hope to have that on the road very soon. 2016 was a very busy year. We saw a 3.5% increase in call volume from 2015. We responded to 4,507 emergencies in the town of Trumbull. We had an average response time of 7.3 minutes. We were transported 76% of the time. It's a lot of transports. And we were able to cover 95% of the total call volume in the town of Trumbull. That is up from 2% from where it was the year prior at 93%. So I thank you all for your support. Last year, you approved the funding to allow for a 3rd ambulance 5 days a week during our highest call volume hours, and we were able to continue to increase how many calls we're able to cover. So I thank you all for that. In 2016, we were granted the 2016 State of Connecticut Governor's Award for organization across the state. We were very honored for that award. This is the 2nd time the service has won the award in the last 3 years. That is a huge effort by the entire team of both volunteers and our staff that come from 2 different staffing companies. We have a wonderful team of people. Last year we had our volunteers volunteer a minimum of 8,748 hours. That is a minimum in 2016. One of our volunteers actually, we were acknowledged at our recent awards recognition dinner. He did 327 calls himself, which is an amazing young man who has spent a lot of time there and has learned a lot about EMS, and we are grateful for him and as well as all our volunteers who continue to come out and help us cover calls. We did just celebrate our 40 years of service. We had a nice awards recognition dinner in January where we acknowledged 2 of our lifetime members, Michael Delvecchio and Vi Watson, for 40 years of service to the organization. It was a wonderful evening, and it was well attended by both members of our community and our organization. So thank you very much for the support there. Last year, we saw financially, I'll take you through your packets. The first page, you'll see total call volumes for the year 2016, comparing it to 2015 all the way down to 2013. As you see, we are making steady growth each year with the number of calls that we're being requested to respond to. In 2013, we were requested 3,922 times, and again, last year we were responding to 4,507 calls. So our goal is to continue to try to maintain a 95% average of calls that we are able to cover without relying on mutual aid service, and we're able to do that with the help of our entire team. On page 2 of your packets, you'll see some of our comparison financials. These are approximate numbers based upon our weekly deposits that are made by our billing company. In the calendar year 2016, the department was reimbursed $1,605,000, and that is up from the year prior in 2015, where it was $1,393,000 approximately. This was largely due to the increase of call volume, as well as us adding the second additional paramedic that the board helped us secure a few years ago during our heavy call volumes. Again, we have a second paramedic on duty from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. So I thank you for that. This year's budget, we are looking to increase that by an hour. We're looking to have the second paramedic on duty till 5 o'clock in the evening. We see that our call volume does not drop off until about 5 after some of the businesses in town close.
What kind of volume is that between 4 and 5?
It really depends on the day. It's really hit or miss. But what we're seeing is we're having a lot of hangover with people trying to finish up paperwork because they're going out between 3 and 4, and they're, everyone's trying to leave at the same time. So we're ending up paying overage for salaries too. So it's a combination of paying people extra to finish up their paperwork for the day, as well as other calls coming in. I'm hoping that having the additional car on for an hour will allow an extra resource to respond to calls, so the people that are going to get out at 4 can get out on time, and we're not paying overtime on the back end. You're welcome. Thank you. When you flip through your packets, you will see our 20 busiest places in town that we've responded to in 2016. This is on page 4 of your packet. You will see a number of these places are larger businesses in town. If we omit the top 20 locations of where we were dispatched to, that we still are responding to 2/3 of our call volume to private residences and small businesses and roadways here in town. So you can just look through that at your convenience, and you can understand where we're going to in town on a regular basis. On the last page of your packet, you'll see just a calendar of events. As you know, we respond to many, many calls, but in the community, we're very active with training, providing free community standbys with ambulances and people and personnel, as well as doing different kinds of community educational events. Last year, we had a minimum of 67 different events that we attended as an organization, whether it be training all the 8th graders in Madison Middle School and Hillcrest Middle School, whether it be training commission, board members, Town of Trumbull employees, school officials at both private and public schools in town, Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, sports. We've been very active in the community. So just a brief idea of what we've been doing in 2016, and give you an idea of what's been going on at EMS. This year's budget, we did submit our budget, and been working with our commission and our folks to identify our priorities for this year. I know that you have a very busy day, but I can take you through line by item if you like, or on the highlight. Okay, that sounds great. So one of the areas where we saw a bit of an increase is in our staffing area. When I talk about staffing, it is for our paid EMTs and paramedics that come from 2 subcontracted companies. We do go out to bid for those services, and we are given an hourly rate and or an annual rate for services. This year, we will be going out to bid for our paramedic contract. So we did factor that into our staffing costs. When we look at our contractual obligations for our BLS staffing, and we factor in the hours of coverage that we have been providing, we did have a small increase in our budget here for the extra hour of coverage that we're looking to provide from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Again, we're looking to staff a 3rd ambulance for that additional hour each year. We were requesting $1,099,000 in this account to help with paramedic coverage, EMS staffing, our CMED assessment, paramedic intercepts, as you may know, is when a mutual aid paramedic must come in to assist us because our volume is too high, and our volume is more than our resources can handle at that point in time. And then we have our dispatching charges that are by quote from Southwest CMed. They handle all our emergency medical dispatching and our patching into the hospitals. And our EMS charting system that allows us to document our calls and file them with the state of Connecticut as well as the hospital. We did see a bit of an increase in that line item. Again, the majority of it is based upon quotes from the CMed assessments as well as increased pay rates for the staffing companies as well as the increased hours. When we go through our line item, if you go to our services and fees, this was an area that we were budgeting $66,550 each year. We did reduce that to $61,000 or $61,550. This was because we did go out to bid last year for billing services, and we were able to reduce that cost and that expense. Therefore, we're anticipating a lower expense on that area. Our program expenses handles our awards dinner, recognition dinner that we do each year for our members and staff. Because we are growing as an organization, we have requested again a little bit extra in that account. Currently, we have over 80 volunteers in the organization, and we continue to grow each and every month. We're seeing approximately 12 to 14 people on average in training each month. So we have a nice steady stream of new recruits that are coming in to help us with the organization. When we move down to program supplies, I did put in the budget a request for an additional $5,000 for medical supplies. Because we're responding to so many medical calls in town, we are using more medical supplies. So we did ask for an increase of $5,000 in that line item. That is an area I'm watching very closely in this current budget. We are, because of the high call volumes like we've been seeing, we've been using a lot of medications, a lot of durable supplies, a lot of oxygen. So we're requiring, the purchase of more of these supplies. So there is a small increase in that line item. Not much has changed in our cleaning supplies, communications, public relations. We tried to keep all those lines the same of previous years. Professional development for our continuing education, so we keep our folks working. They are required to do continuing education. We have not increased on that line. We have professional development in services where we have EMT recertifications, and we have monthly training sessions. This area we were able to decrease a little bit from years in past. We have a new way of doing EMT refreshers, EMR refreshers. We're going online with a lot of this training, which requires less instructor time. So we can reduce that line item a bit in this year's budget. We do have some additional costs with some of our maintenance equipment and repair equipment. Because we have some newer equipment like our LifePak cardiac monitors, our CPR Lucas devices, they require lithium batteries to run. We need to replace those once in a while and purchase new ones. So we did ask for a small increase in our repair equipment budget to allow for us to purchase additional batteries. As they start to lose life, we're able to kind of purchase new batteries in that area. We do have an ambulance equipment repair line item here and radio repair item. We've been pretty fortunate. Our equipment is new, but once in a while we do require it to be repaired. So we're holding at $2,000 in each one of those lines to try to fix any unanticipated repairs. We did increase our capital outlay budget, and this is regarding the new paramedic vehicle that we added last year. We do have an annual payment for that now. We did request a new stretcher initially for $19,000, but at this point in time, we feel that our stretcher that we were going to replace has another year or two of life left in it, and we have asked and looked to remove that out of our current budget. So we did work with finance to remove that piece of equipment for this year. It is. It is like an asset. And, you know, this stretcher currently was a 2009. We purchased the first ones in 2009. And generally speaking, with a lot of wear and tear, they should get 7 years of life on those types of stretchers. Because we have more equipment out on the road, we're using the stretchers a little bit less. We feel that we can get another year or two as a reserve piece on that unit. So I think when we look to purchase a new ambulance down the road, this is really an item that should be included in a new purchase of an ambulance as we're moving forward. So if we're budgeting for an ambulance, we budget for a stretcher as well. And there really wasn't any more changes in our budget. Our rentals for oxygen tanks, our copier for the building hasn't really changed at all. And then we go into the town side of the budget with heat and electricity, utilities, and water. We were requesting $1,507,000 approximately. And we did work with finance, and we feel comfortable with the first selectman's recommendation of $1,439,343. Our department does feel comfortable with that, and I thank everybody for their help as we prepared this year's budget.
Questions? We had asked Bill Chin in our meeting last week about computers and looking into leasing for the computers here.
Sure.
I see here that you're asking for a new computer for $3,500. I have no issue with the need of a new computer. Would it make sense to talk with him if we're doing a lease program, if it makes sense to add in one more computer if that's cheaper as a whole for the town?
I'd be more than happy to look at that with Bill. These are tough books. They're a little bit different than our typical desktop that we're using. I don't know.
Right, and I don't know if there's a package that brings in multiple. I don't know how any of that works. Just, you know, sometimes when you get more, it's
Sure.
cheaper.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'd be happy to work with Bill on that as
Okay.
well.
And then the other thing, and I know this is like the town side, but we have $20,000 in electricity.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do to bring that cost down in your building? And I know it's an older building and you've looked at redesign and we have other things going on there, but is there?
We have a very small building, and generally the two rooms that are occupied on a regular basis, as well as our front bays, the lights are on manual light switches. But those are areas of the building that people are walking in and through all night long. It's very difficult to shut off the lights at this point in time in those areas. Our back bay, when it's not in use, the lights are off. Our offices, the lights are off when not in use. We do have a back hallway that goes to the bathrooms that needs to remain illuminated because there's no windows. So
Now, are those lights the older lights, or are they more energy efficient?
I think they're more energy efficient. That
Okay.
we went through an assessment a few years back.
And then the last two questions, which are probably not for you, but they pertain to your budget. The special revenue account, how much is in that, and can we use it for anything else?
If you look, page, well, there's no page, but at the end of the account, the department, there are two special agency accounts. One is for DEMT courses. There's 65,000 in there. And I spoke with Joe before we transferred those training to these accounts. And, yeah, they're EMT courses, so they do have to get training,
So it must be for training,
yeah.
but any kind of trainings within his department?
No, I would think it was training related to the EMT, because they do supply training for outside organizations and taxpayers and so forth, and they collect a fee for that.
Okay. And what do we need to do to transition, I guess this would be for Bill and Elaine, transition you guys out? I mean, clearly you're bringing in more revenue than you're spending. It's, what was it, roughly 1.6, you're spending 1.4. And we had discussed it last year and I believe the year before. Enterprise fund.
Sure. I did work with my commission, and we took a look at it. When we factor in all the other things that would go into an enterprise, we feel comfortable with the operational budget that we're able to move towards an enterprise. But when we factor in all the ancillary things that you don't see in our budget, like fuel costs, benefits, when you add all that into enterprise. I don't feel that right now we're bringing in enough reimbursements to cover that entire expense. And it's something I'd be happy to work with Maria and the board with to continue to explore it. Right now, when you look at those things that aren't really factored into our budget, we're concerned that we wouldn't have enough reimbursement to cover all those costs.
And lastly, the transport rate, is it, what is it, where you take somebody and you transport them to a hospital? Or?
That's correct. Yeah. So when when we get dispatched, whether we transport or not is based upon the patient. Sometimes a good Samaritan will call and say, "Hey, there's somebody sitting on the side of the road. They don't look like they're well." We get there and they're like, "I'm just taking a rest." They want to go to the hospital, or somebody may fall in their home and we may arrive there and we just assist them up and they're not hurt. So that's why the transport rate is, our transport rate is actually pretty high. And I think if you were to compare it to a lot of other agencies, majority of the time when we do get dispatched, we do transport.
And now I know that if I remember correctly, the ALS interception, that's when somebody else comes in.
That's correct.
Are we, and I understand we're pretty high, 95%,
Mhm.
available on off hours for us to then go out into other communities?
And we do. Currently, we have a mutual aid agreements with Shelton, Stratford, Bridgeport, Monroe, Easton, and that 5% of the time when we don't have a resource available, or if we don't have a paramedic available, they'll send their resources to help us. And if we have a resource available during their busy times, our resources will shift into their communities as well. It doesn't happen a lot, but it is a system, an emergency backup system that we have in place. You're welcome.
So if I'm having a medical emergency of some kind at my house.
Yes.
And when the EMS comes, the ambulance comes, I tell them to take me to the VA hospital.
Yes.
What happens then? Will they do that, or what
So,
will they do?
because VA hospital is out of area, we have people that come into town and say, "I want to go to Hartford Hospital," or "I want to go to Danbury Hospital." And because depending on what our resources are like, depending on the time of day, if we have more than one resource available for the town, if we have upstaffed with additional volunteers, if it's at all feasible to get a resident to where they need to go, we will do our best attempt to get them there. If we can't, because our resources are thin, it's very busy, we don't want to leave the town without a resource for 2.5 hours when we go out of the area, we will ask for an assist from AMR or a commercial entity to come in and provide the transport for that patient.
And then, as far as insurances and stuff, then the VA will pretty much probably cover that or something.
That's correct. Yeah, a lot of times, depending on the different programs that are out there, the insurance will reimburse for that service, or a portion of that for that service.
So then either Trumbull will do it or an outside source will do it.
That's correct.
Bring that patient to the hospital in West Haven.
Yes, we always try to do our best to accommodate, especially because everybody has a different situation. And it's really based upon resources at that point in time. With priority symptoms, though, if we have a patient that is really a critical patient, our medical control requires us to go to the closest, most appropriate facility. So if somebody was really having a serious medical problem, we probably would not be able to take them outside the local area just based upon our hospital protocol as well. So, you're welcome.
Just on the enterprise account again.
Yes.
Is that purely a financial decision, or are there other elements that are non-financial that would influence that one way or the other?
No, I think that's purely a financial, we were just concerned that if we were to take on that enterprise, when you factor in those other fees and charges, that we wouldn't have enough to cover that. And we wouldn't want to struggle by not making that each year. If it's something that you think that the board wants to look at, in a little bit more detail, I think, we would be happy to go that route as long as we knew that we were able to kind of.
How close are you based on what you did this year? I mean, is it like the factor of 10%, or the factor of 30%, or 50%?
I think looking at it, sure, sorry. I think looking at it, it definitely is something that would probably be we probably have about $100,000 shortfall at this point in time.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do for our
thank you.
community. Just a couple questions. In the services and fees professional account, the first selectman has made a couple reductions. One for $30,000 to reduce staffing. And I know you said you're going out to bid. Are you still comfortable with the figure that's in there without that $30,000?
I am. We're going out to bid, and one of the areas that we always look to try to look at is where are some of our areas that we're seeing spikes in call volume. We feel that with the additional hour on the back end, we would still be able to cover those additional spikes in call volume there. I feel that our bids will come in appropriate, where we'll have some additional funds to
Okay.
continue with the program that we have.
Okay, and the other one that was reduced was the EMS charts that you had in for $66.55, and he reduced that by $5,655 down to $1,000. So, are you comfortable with that? I mean, that's reporting you have to do to the state. So,
Yes, actually, with our billing company, they've actually been paying for that fee. We had it in there for a number of years with the expectation that we may have to take that on, but we have not had to. So we just have a $75 a month fee that goes to EMS charts that helps transmit the charts for us. So we were able to reduce that line.
okay, great. And then the last question I have is back to that stretcher. Because there's a note in here saying it's going to be paid out of the special revenue account. So is that not being done at all now? You're just not going to do it?
We're not going to do that at this point in time. If we see that it gives us any problems at all, we know we have some money in the special agency account. If we run into a problem, we can move at that point in time to make a purchase, because we do have those funds available.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you just thumb through those and just make sure I didn't have any of my own stuff in there? Thank you. Oh, sure, absolutely. I'll move it this way. Here you go. Hope you guys have a good day.
Okay, so next up is Public Works Department. I would ask two things. If you sit in the chairs, you're welcome to please hold the microphone up so we can hear. That's kind of the purposes my clerk pointed out of why we use this room, and so that it can actually be picked up by the television. Or you may stand at the podium and that mic will work just as well too. Whichever you're more comfortable with, I don't care. That's fine. So we are on page 207. Which would be tab 3.
Once again, for the very first time, for this budget presentation.
Is that mic on? Now that we said sit there, apparently not. Is it plugged in? John, we just take a... So maybe we undo that one and... Now, see? I hear something. Oh, yeah. All right.
Okay. So, once again, for the very first time this year, my budget is relatively the same with a number of cuts. I don't know, Madam Chairman, if you want to go through this by each segment of the budget, or we want to focus on those issues within the budget that might require explanation. You tell me.
Yeah, why don't we, since it is such a large department, focus on where the primary areas of change or the things that impact your accomplishments, what you're trying to do for the year?
So if there are a few changes that I would bring to your attention that exist. Some of which I have control over, some of which I don't. We have an increase in the streetlight account, which is within this budget. That is just a matter of what the UI's tariff is for each of these streetlights. I can tell you that there's been a spate of requests for new streetlights in locations that are somewhat dark. The process is we request that everyone in the neighborhood sign a petition requesting the street light, and if everyone is unanimous, we grant the request, goes to the UI, and I believe it's how much a month, Maria, for each light? It's $30 or $40 a month per light. We have 2,700 street lights. We just had a neighborhood ask for 5 street lights. I'm not the arbiter of safety or security in the town, and so unless there's a policy you want to employ that restricts this or modifies the process, every year we're going to be adding streetlights. So in addition to the increase in the tariff, we did have an increase in a number of streetlights, and that's more or less out of our hands. If you go to the Highway Division budget.
John,
Sure.
Director's account. And then if not, does anyone have any questions on streetlight account? Okay, thank you.
If we go to the highway department, one of the things you'll see is out of the first selectman's recommended budget, there was a $10,000 decrease in the uniform allowance. The thought behind that was this is the account that's used not only for contractual obligations of the town in terms of safety boots and rain gear, other kinds of gloves and eye protection. It was decided that we would provide a new complement of safety gear every other year instead of every year. Let's try this out. Let's make sure it works. It really all depends on what sort of work we're doing. If we're in the woods cutting up trees and there's branches and a lot of other abrasive elements in the work environment, some of the safety gear gets torn up. So we'll try this. I think we're in pretty good shape right now. We have a little bit of an inventory. When we have new employees, we have to outfit them thoroughly. So we will do this, and if this becomes a source of a funding challenge, we will be back to talk to you. Everything else remains the same virtually until we get to the 5-year capital outlay plan. We had a large fall off this year. What we bought 5 years ago came off of the budget. We have a modest request for one pickup truck to replace one that's pretty well on its way out. And we also have 3 triaxle dump trucks with 3 drive sets of wheels in the back. And the trucks are old. They're late 90 trucks. But the drivetrain and the trucks themselves are in pretty good shape. So we decided it would be best if we just replaced the failing piece of the trucks, and that was the truck bodies themselves, which are rusted and 16 years old, so or older. So we requested an amount that would reflect each truck being rehabilitated with a new dump body, and that would be $30,000 per truck. We have 3 of them. We asked for $90,000 in the 5-year capital plan. The First Selectman's budget deferred one of them till next year. So that's what this budget reflects.
And will the body of one of them hold up for another year?
We'll probably, we'll select the best out of the group, and we'll wait till next year. We'll just live with it.
Does anybody on Public Works Highway?
All the other departments were reduced. This one seems to be high. I'm just curious why it's staying about the same.
Why this one is high?
Well, it's about the same as most departments.
I think it's the connection to the buildings through charter, that's the big piece in that phone.
But it's not in Bill's budget.
I don't believe so. I'll get more detail on utilities, I'll provide you with schedules.
Thank you.
And we're looking at a telephone, what option to go with, and I think the final numbers are coming March 1st, so prior to the vote, so we'll get more details back to you.
There's one line item, I'm sorry.
Wait, no, Vicky's next.
Thanks. Hi, John. How are
Hi,
you?
good.
Elimination of a maintainer one vacant, was the vacant position impact on your department?
That one has de minimis impact, that maintainer one position. The maintainer one position was a residual position that has long been in the department, and we do not use that category any longer because it doesn't require a CDL license. And so the elimination of that position is not significant.
Okay, and then if I'm reading this correctly, maybe Maria, you can help me out with this. The overtime for this year seems to be over budget. Is that correct? I'm sorry?
It's probably because of leaf pickup and snow plowing, because all the highway and parks and all the employees in highway assist with the snow removal.
The overtime in highway, is that what you're
Yes.
looking at? Okay, let's go back to that. There are adjustments that occur in that account. Let's say we are all out doing leaf pickup. Occasionally, the parks guys, overtime will get charged to parks when it should be in leaf pickup and the like. But I have a report here. We can make copies of this. And by the way, this is Dianara. This is our new budget guru here. And she makes me these reports every week. And we can make copies of that. You have another copy of that? If not, we'll make copies of that for you. And that is a more granular examination of all of the overtimes in not only highway, but in leaf pickup and in snow, the snow account, and all of those line item budgets. And that indicates that there's still $92,000 left overall in all of these budgets. So obviously the two big efforts that consume all of the money are the leaf pickup and snow plowing. And the remainder are just emergencies. Would you like a copy of that?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Anyone else care? Okay. We'll make a couple and we'll get them to you. Yeah.
Can the public get a copy too?
Sure.
We are, okay.
There's one line item for annual rentals, and we have the old building, year 4, new building, year 1. Do we have to keep that,
What page?
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
222,
222.
top line?
Okay.
You know, last year, obviously we have another building, but it's for a copier. Are we keeping a copier in, I'm gonna guess where your office used to be, and getting a new one?
We're going to cannibalize one that is in engineering for plans, big plans that we make copies of. And we do have one. It's funny you should be asking this because the girls down at that office do not want us to transfer this copier. They're having a lot of trouble with it. But we have to make provisions for copiers for the new building, so.
Well, and, I mean, if you're moving everyone over to a new building, is there any way to terminate the lease?
No.
And not continue it? I
Because-
guess that's where I'm going, and I know
Yeah.
we're talking about a small number and a very large budget, just unfortunately, that's where we're at.
The roadway supervisors, the general superintendent, the fleet manager, they all use that. They all print things out daily, hourly.
Still will be in use.
That will still be in use. We're just bifurcating the some of the administrative efforts.
But do they need a copier or a printer? Because I know we print
Both.
copiers.
Yeah, well, they need both. They make copies of equipment specifications and bids, and they print You know, we receive a lot of stuff electronically today. It has to be printed out and
Okay, any other questions on highway? And I know, why don't we hand those out just so that everybody take a quick look? Snow removal, dare I ask where we are? Thank you.
snow removal, we are still, overtime, we have used 57% of the budget to date. Program supplies, we've used 55% of the budget to date. There haven't been a lot of storms. The storms we've had, unfortunately, or for whatever it's worth, I mean, they come when they come, have been either on holidays, holiday weekends, we had one Christmas Eve, or on weekends. So they've been expensive storms, they've been long storms, but we are well within budget, and I'm confident we will, looking at the long-term weather forecast, if we can get through the month of February. I think we only have March to get through, and let's keep our fingers crossed, and we'll be in very good shape. So that budget remains the same as it does every year. I mean, that's just a coin flip. It served us well in the past 7 years. We've only exceeded it once, I think, to my recollection, 1 year.
My fault. Yes, go ahead, Roy.
I have one question. That new building that's being put up down there at the highway department, when do you think you're gonna be moving in, and who's moving in to that building?
So everyone from the annex, so that's all of recreation, the arts people, the no, the credit union,
You have room over there for the credit union?
yeah, and all of the supplies that they use. There's gonna be a bay there, a whole garage bay that will accommodate all of the soccer balls and T-shirts and everything else that they have to give out there. In addition to my administrative staff, Dianara and the other staff that work there that do payroll and the like, the Board of Education Facilities Director will be domiciled there. The hope is that we can exact some economies from that synergy. We've talked a lot over the years since Mark Deming has gotten here. I think we've accomplished a lot of things together, complemented each other. You know, both Mark and myself are of the same mindset, what our purpose is and why we're here. And he's a good resource. He knows a lot of things I don't know. And I might know one or two things that he doesn't know, but so that's who's going to be there. We have built in some flexibility for some future administrative type uses if we need them or when we need them. So this building will end up being empty. It'll be available to the town for whatever it might decide to use it for or not. I'd say by the end of May, we should be in there by the end of April, and it would be very disruptive to have a move in recreation, you know, right in that time frame. So I think that might be done in phases.
So you might have a couple extra offices in that building?
No extra offices, but we have we have locations where we can put carrels, you know, just cubicles, yeah. That's,
Was
you're good.
any thought given to moving the park rangers there?
No. One of the reasons the park rangers are where they are was because of the vandalism we had at the Maryville property. We spent a lot of money and a lot of time leveling that whole field, and ATVs go down there and just tear it up. It's never going to be able to be used for anything if we don't have some vigilance there. So that was a compatible usage of that building. Plus, we have every expectation in the springtime of rehabilitating the garages that are there and using those garages. So a presence there is important to the town.
Okay. Scott?
On 228, there's a program supplies. It's for sand, salt, things of that sort, plus also some truck repairs, other expenses. It's held consistent over the last couple of years, and I believe last year you had indicated that we were covering up the salt, the sand, and able to retain it better than it had previously.
Yep.
With that, being that there's a retention of the resource, shouldn't the number go down?
The number will go down if there's less snow. That's the only reason.
Okay, it's not
Yeah.
Holdover amount doesn't really impact enough.
Now, this year, and look, it's hard to calculate what the actual usage is. Our usage is against budget. Our usage is not really against inventory because we don't really calculate what's in that pile. But when I go into the dome and I look and I see what's left and I look at the budget, my sense is that we're going to have to fill the dome back up and perhaps use a significant amount of the material costs in this budget to just be ahead of it for next year, so that there's no surprises in the following winter if we get another one like we got 4 years ago. So, you're welcome.
Any other questions on the snow removal account? Okay. Yes, Ted?
Leaf pickup, it's a significant amount of overtime. Is there a particular reason why you would think that, you know, if you have enough time, you can plan for, you know, how many streets have to get done? You know, what happens to create the overtime situation? And when exactly does overtime kick in? You talked about holidays.
Yeah. That's the biggest enigma that I have. You know, snow is number 2 because we never know how much snow we're going to get. We never know what the effort really is going to involve. But the leaf pickup piece is contingent upon when the leaves come off the trees. This year, the trees hung on for a long, long time. Yeah. And so, you know, we're ready and willing to go, but it takes a good 6 to 7 weeks to conduct this program in the town. And we have to get them off the streets by the middle of December. I mean, that's essential for a couple reasons. If we don't, they end up blocking the storm drains, and you end up getting ponding, you get nights below freezing, you get treacherous conditions. And if they don't block the storm drains, they go in the storm drains, and then we have to clean out the storm drains in the spring, which we do every spring, and along with the sand that we put on the roads and everything else. DEP last year proposed legislation that would force you to have all leaves off the street by December 15th. We, just as a matter of course, for the safety of the town. There's nothing more slippery than leaves on the street in rain. It's more slippery than ice because you don't realize it. It's a safety issue, and it's a maintenance issue, and it could create ice hazards. So when they begin coming down, and this has been controversial, I know, we start in the north end of town, because if you look at the trees in the north end of town, they're bare before the ones in the south end of town, because there's a 400-foot elevation change. And there are microclimates in this town. We recognize that. Many people aren't happy with that, but you know, it's you pick up the leaves where the leaves are. I don't know if that answers your question, but when we start leaf pickup, it's all out. Parks people, highway people, building maintenance people, they're out there. We have manpower people. We have 8 crews. We work 10-hour days until we start losing daylight. There comes a point in the middle of November where we can't work 10 hours any longer. We work Saturdays, and depending on how we are able to keep up with the leaf drop, we will work that one holiday, Veterans Day. And then as we approach Thanksgiving, we look and we see where we are. Those are real expensive days, but you know, as I say, our goal is December 15th. We didn't make it this year. We went a week over, or 3 days over. I can tell you it's not a pleasant thing for these guys to be working, you know, 58 hours a week, and doing that kind of work. The paychecks early are welcome, but after a while, it's a grind. So that's our approach, that's our philosophy, that's why we do it. And the sooner the leaves come down, I think there's an opportunity to save some money, but not a lot.
Any other questions? Okay, Public Works Construction, 231. Anything here? Go ahead.
What is road aid tar? On 232, it was indicated use $200,000 from that.
Yeah, well, all right. So Town Aid for Roads is a grant that the town has received, every town has received for decades. The town of Trumbull receives $400,000 or $500,000 a year, Maria?
Yeah.
Town Aid for Roads, what do we receive every year?
Yeah, it's
Twice a year or once a year? Okay, so it's $250,000 a year. I'm thinking of LoSiP. But both of the, LoSiP, it's state. So Town Aid for Roads and LoSiP, which are the two perennial grants that we receive from the state that have different applications, requirements, and you couldn't use Town Aid for Roads for building something, you know, HVAC system or something. But that has all been placed in jeopardy in this gubernatorial budget. So where this budget asks to use Town Aid for Roads, we might be relying on money that we won't be getting.
We have none in reserve still, you know, what we received last year or whatever.
Well, we have money in reserve, but we also have programs that matched up to those. If you looked at last year's budget, you would see the same thing, that used Town Aid for Roads for a certain portion of the program. So what we didn't, it's spoken for, yeah.
So I have last year's budget in front of me with the roads that were to be repaired. How did we do last year on these roads? And I see that last year Rocky Hill was taken out by the first selectman. It was to be done in 2016, but I don't see Rocky Hill in this budget. So,
Do you have that report? She's the best. Right, 77,000. So last year, we spent $536,500 on paving repair costs between highway construction and town aid. We used $220,000 of TAR funding. I'm sorry, I read this wrong. We had a program of $536,500, which included Rocky Hill Road
it did,
and the police department. The new parking lot at the police department.
that was your request. Was that what you
Right.
got in the end? I don't think so.
No, at the end, I got $370,000, and TAR funding was $220,000, and the approved budget was $150,000.
Right.
Yeah.
So the question is, did we get done all of those projects that were included in that last year?
Well, yes? Yeah, okay, yes.
Including Rocky Hill, because
No,
that
no.
was taken out.
It was taken out,
And,
so it wasn't part of the program.
okay, so, but it's not put in now again, so it's, I don't see it in
Okay.
the new list.
Okay. I could, unfortunately, these programs are a collaboration between the highway department and the
That's a
engineering
sewer
department.
trench. That's what it was listed in last year.
Right, and I don't know if Frank Smirglio, the town engineer, is on vacation today. He'd be able to give you that answer instantly, but we could give you that answer by the end of the
Okay.
week. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, so Rocky Hill Road, Bill. All right. Do you know anything about it? Okay. Yep. There were issues on the sanitary line there. So I think there's WPCA work that has to be conducted.
Yeah.
So again, this repair budget will be reduced to $117,000. And we're hoping that there's going to be a couple $100,000 of town aid for roads.
Can I speak about the car? I apologize, I made a mistake. There's about 464,000
Yep.
we get in a year. And next year, according to the governor's budget, it states that we will still get that. And we'll get lows of 450,000.
So, if we get 400 and change,
Yeah.
basically,
464 in road aid and 450 in LoSiP.
I'm sure you have plenty of work to do. So,
Yeah, but.
do you have something that would be earmarked with that extra 260,000 if we had it? And also on the flip side, because I go on the assumption we're getting no money. Without the
I would.
200,000,
I would.
what would we end up?
Look-
Here's the basic. If you break it down, we have MacArthur Road, which is estimated at about a little over $125,000. So if we get no money, which is what I'm assuming, you wouldn't have enough to even complete that one road. But then you would have enough to do a few other smaller ones. What would we do? I guess the basic is, assuming we get nothing, would you need at least $125,000 to at least get the one larger project completed?
Well, we're gonna do the worst roads. Whatever the worst road is, we will do. I mean, we're just gonna, it's just a matter of triage. So if that's the worst road, that's where we'll go with it. But understand that the highway program, the road repair program is always in various stages of beginning and completing. So if we have a road in the program from last year, and there's always, this year we'll be doing the underground investigation for next year's program and the like. And, you know, one thing about the program is you never know what you're gonna run into. So when we go over budget on some and under budget on others, if in the total of the program we're over budget, we hit the TAR account. It's appropriate for that. That's what it's there for. If you take the TAR account and you just designate it for this program, you're not gonna have any safety valve when you're doing some of these major programs. And we have some major stuff we're looking at, and we've used TAR money, for instance, to do the investigative work on Chestnut Hill Road. That's where the money came from. It was never budgeted anywhere else. And now we're looking at lots of money for Chestnut Hill Road. We're gonna be doing the same thing for Middlebrooks, and we're gonna be doing the same thing for Williams. So, we never know, you know, just how extensive this work is gonna be. Sometimes we find things that we just can't even wait to do. We just have to get right in and fix catch basins or fix collapsing pipes or sewer lines or whatever. So, you know, I've always tried to be protective of it and make sure we have a resource there. We talked about the EMS having, you know, some money to address emergencies. We're the same way. Believe me, we don't spend it foolishly. If I can conserve it, I will. But we have uses for it.
John, you know what might be useful is to, you know, every year here, we get requests to repair roads, we get some under the bonding. If you could give us a list of what we had projected we were gonna do and what we have completed, and
Yeah.
I understand some are gonna obviously go from one fiscal year into another, but if they're underway, just let us know.
You know what would be good? We have just completed this year an entire survey of the whole town. We have an engineering firm, VHB, who's done this in many other locations, who I used 25 years ago to do the same thing. They have gone over every single road in the town. They've analyzed it. They've given it a number. You received the executive summary in the capital budget. And this is what we're going to begin to use to identify which roads are addressed, which roads should be mill and paved, which roads should be reclaimed. You know, a couple years back, it was pretty obvious to everyone which roads were the worst, and there were plenty of them. And we took care of those, and now we need a third party to kind of give us some guidance in this and give us some justification for the budgets for the capital program that we ask. What you see here are more or less stopgap, mill and fill. Why they're in the operating budget, we don't expect these to get us 20 more years of life. We're gonna get 8, 10, you know, depending on the amount of traffic and what kind of traffic it is, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try and save either a part of a road, or a part of the road is bad and the rest of the road is good. But operating money gets spent to patch these roads. Capital money gets patched, and our objective is a 20 to 30-year road. So, I mean, that's what we're dealing with here.
Oh, and that's fine. It's just, I think, as has been pointed out, we were told last year we were gonna do these roads. And I realize something changes because you get onto one road and say, whoops, this really needs to take priority. And that's fine. It's just, it'll give us a comparison. We wanted to do this. This is actually what we did.
Yeah, we'll give you whatever you want. You want all the roads that have been done to this point?
Just right now, the ones under your program expense. I'd like a report that lines up with this section of the budget. The current, last year's 522,205.
Right.
What we budgeted, what we did. Then
Okay.
this year, you told us what you want to get to.
Easy. Okay.
Yeah, not a terribly complicated one.
No, okay. by the end of the week?
Yeah, that's
Elaine?
fine.
Okay.
That's fine. We have time. Anything else? Okay, then it looks like, building maintenance, 235. You know what, you did mention, though, I'm gonna jump back, that in last year's, we had money for the parking lot at the police station. But was there not something in the capital budget about?
Right, yes, you're correct. So we have money from the capital budget. Remember last year, the budgets were going on a parallel pace? And when we were submitting the capital budget and the operating budget, we didn't really know where to put these things. So in 2 or 3 instances, they got put in both places, and we explained that to you. If you want to treat this as a capital budget, we will we'll reduce the operating budget, and that's what we did in that instance.
Okay, thank you.
We're on to, the building and facilities maintenance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Last week when TNAC was here, they were looking for a programmable thermostat. I don't think they knew what to do or how to do or who to speak with. Is that something that you could help out with?
Sure.
Okay, because, I don't know.
I mean, there's a process. We've done a lot of work for them. All they have to do is call Alan White, and I'm assuming, well, it's got to be wired for it, but there's no hiccups here. We'll put in a programmable thermostat. Just have them call the facilities director, that's all.
Maria, turn around. What's our temperature in here now?
70.
Okay,
Is that what you asked for?
I did, sir.
I'm here to serve.
It was a little warm before. Getting a little cool now. It was warm before. We seem to go back and forth in this room. Okay, questions? Any particular thing you want to point out first on building facilities maintenance? I mean, I do realize we are generally working with old buildings.
For EMS, there's been discussions,
Mike?
For the EMS building, there's been multiple discussions, redesign plans, studies, things of that sort. Do we know where they are in the process? And I only ask that in regards to the new AC, because I don't know if it's on its last leg or if it's already gone, if it makes sense to try to hold out for a year to see if they are redoing something with the building.
Yeah, we're going to hold off on that. We do have some conceptual design money in this year's capital budget and some residual money in older capital budgets. The needs of EMS have become more significant over the last 2 years. At the same time, we have money in the capital program for the Middlebrooks parking lot. And we're looking at, as I said before, lots of money for Middlebrooks Road. So what we're trying to do is do something comprehensive that's going to satisfy a lot of issues at that nexus, including the whole road. So we are meeting Thursday with consultants. We have a severe queuing issue over there for the TechEc pickup at noontime. And it's more than likely we're going to have to expand the parking lot on the western end, and we're going to have to redo the circulation on the inside of that lot. And so what does that mean to EMS? if EMS were to, let's say, contemplate an addition on the west side of their building, there's an elevation change, and we might have to accommodate some kind of access through Middlebrook's school, but we don't know that yet. I mean, that's just something I thought of, but what do I know? But there's a lot going on right there, and we plan to address the EMS issues, the school issues, and the road issues comprehensively.
So with that, does it make sense to remove the EMS AC?
Well, I don't know how I mean, the AC is for whatever exists there.
But I mean, if
And,
you're leaving the
and,
building, I'm sure there's.
and we also have money for a new roof. We're gonna do a new roof before it starts leaking and we start having health issues. So, you know, I would say leave it there. If we don't need it, I won't spend it.
I trust that.
Yeah.
Just, you know, obviously, we're trying to look at the bottom line.
No, no, I know that.
The whole thing. You know, 'cause I hate to spend money on the AC this year.
We
because
won't.
it's
We won't.
On its last leg, or
Yeah.
tax our tax base for it.
Right.
And then a year or two, if it could have held out, have to redo a new one because we added to the building, have to change. Maybe it's not big enough to hold the capacity for the whole building. Who knows?
Understood.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this department? Wheel is on 243. We can be. Okay.
On account 522203, services and fees, there's an increase for our cleaning budgets.
Yeah.
And I guess it's primarily because of the new building, correct?
And we never budgeted for the health department.
So that wouldn't be in their budget, that's gonna be here?
Yes.
Okay, how about if we're losing the annex, is there going to be a savings there in cleaning?
Yeah. It's de minimis, but yeah, there will be.
One more question in sewer fees. Does that, maybe you can explain that, does that cover all of our town buildings, including the schools?
Well, yes? Maria does that line. Yeah.
Okay, and why is there such a large increase?
Fees went up, I would have to find out exactly how much fees went up.
Can you let us know that? Because, you know, since 2015, I think or 2014, I calculated like a 57% increase in the fees.
Well,
Are we watering lawns? I mean, I don't know.
yeah, I mean, there was a dispute with Bridgeport
I do.
before the agreement was made, and in all of the budgets, we budgeted what we were going to pay instead of what they thought we should pay, and so now all the adjustments are coming home to roost. But Maria, you get the bill, and I think you generate that line item. Frank doesn't, does he? Okay. So.
Thank you.
Now we're on to fleet maintenance, 243.
So there are a number of reductions in fleet maintenance. One is the just general parts, oil, and the like. We've left we've reduced the gas budget. Hopefully, it'll remain where it is. And we've left the repair budget about the same. But I have to alert you to the fact that this budget's been impacted by the removal of 2 positions. I think 2 positions in this budget is not prudent. I would agree to 1, but not 2, and I'll tell you why. We have many senior garage mechanics. We do not condone vacations in the wintertime for obvious reasons. From November to probably the middle of April, we discourage vacation time. We can't stop them, but they've been pretty cooperative. So for the remainder of the year, the cumulative vacation time for these mechanics is 30 or 40 weeks. So that means during the summer, when they have to take their vacations, there are times where there's a shortage of manpower. Add that to the personal days, sick days, vacation days, and all the rest. It's not a good idea. We've made a big investment in equipment, and one of the reasons some of the equipment we had a shorter life than desirable or forecasted was the whole maintenance issue. Vehicles we buy today are very sophisticated, different technology for emissions and suspension and the like, and they require periodic maintenance to keep them at their peak efficiency. So this account was singled out to take 2 positions out of that complement of mechanics. I don't think is prudent, but you will have the last say on that.
Can you tell us the difference between the 2 positions?
The garage service person was brought in to merely do oil changes, repair tires, no major, and go get parts and, do all of the lighter chores. The full mechanic, the fleet mechanic, does everything: hydraulics, brakes, air conditioning, everything that is required to do on any piece of equipment. So that is the difference. It was just a lower job description in terms of responsibilities and experience, background. Although we got an excellent guy who was capable of doing all of that, but that's the only position we had open, and he took it.
So without that position, you're saying
We could
someone has
give
to
that
go for
position up.
parts.
We could give that position up.
So if you had to choose between the 2, you would want to fill the full
Yeah.
repairman?
Yeah. If you're gonna remove a position, I would say take out this service person and,
Then in a sense, aren't we paying somebody more qualified to do lesser work?
we have a lot of light duty stuff. We have there's not too many weeks that go by that someone isn't on light duty and more than one. Slips on ice, injuries, lifting injuries and the like. We generally will station them at the transfer station, checking IDs, or we'll put them in a truck to go and get parts. So it's worked out pretty well. I mean, it's important to have some of those, light duty positions to accommodate those things and make sure they come to work and do something productive instead of sitting home.
other questions on fleet maintenance?
You're no longer repairing police vehicles, correct?
Correct.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else? Otherwise, we will move on to the recycling center on 249.
So, staffing the same. The tipping fee at Wheeler Brader increased by 3/4 of CPI, as did the operation of the transfer station. Hazardous waste day is a little more expensive. There's been an increase in participation there. Just about the same budget we had last year, with the exception of the small increases. Does anybody understand this budget? I have trouble with it.
I'll ask it anyway. A few years ago, we talked about kind of a transfer of, an improvement in the amount of tonnage based on recycling, and there was a program to bring somebody in to help foster the recycling effort, and that was supposed to translate into some sort of savings in the amount of tonnage. And I remember all of that from a few years ago. Yet I see the budget staying the same year over year. So the first question is, have we gained any efficiency with the recycling program that we have in town, since we all have blue pails that we put things in? And secondly, is that why does the budget get higher as opposed to getting somewhat lower based on the recycling efficiency?
So recycling tonnage has kind of plateaued. It's what it's been for the last 4 years. There has been, and there's been no decrease in the municipal solid waste side, the trash portion of it. 17,000 tons is pretty consistent. So the increases are generally the increases that are built into contracts we have with the burn plant in Bridgeport and the operator of the transfer station. But the revenues we get from recycling and metals have decreased. Actually, recycling has remained the same, but metals has decreased. It's a commodity. Those are the only changes in this budget, really. And the other thing is, I think there's been an increase here in the in hauling of brush, because every time you have trees coming down in town, you have people have branches in their yards and they cut them up, and that portion of the transfer station has exploded. Christmas trees, branches, yard cleanup, those things have increased. But no, everything else has remained status quo virtually.
So there's no opportunity to improve that by having another recycling program or publicizing it, or, it just seems like there should have been some efficiency someplace. That's my cut at it, by reselling or reusing or doing something different. And it just seems like it stays going up.
Yeah. There are programs, generally they're publicity programs, try to have people focus on the value of recycling, the environmental worth of recycling. We make money on recycling. But as I said, I mean, it is what it is. People, I don't know, you know, the state has some ambitious goals with recycling, 60% by 2025. I think we're at about, we're less than 30% now. But what they miscalculated was what the makeup of trash is, because now, it used to be, you know, 30 years ago when I started getting involved in that portion of the business, it was newspapers were the highest weight in the chain. And as we've gone from newspapers to electronic news, the biggest weight in trash now are organics. Your potato peels, what you throw away at the end of supper. Understand that recycling is very lightweight. So when you're measuring recycling in terms of tons, it takes a lot to make a ton of recyclables, plastic bottles and plastic stuff, tin foil, all of that. Glass is constant, but you know, we paid $175 to have our dumpster up there at the transfer station taken to Shelton to the recycling facility. And if there's 8 tons on that trailer, 8 to 10 tons, I mean, that's pretty full. And we get, how much do we get? $35 a ton? So it might be $350 maximum that we get in revenue, and then there's a 10% deduction for water weight and all of that. So we're happy to do it. It's the right thing to do. And we get more than most any town around here because of we have a long-range contract. But to increase it tonnage-wise, it's very difficult to do. The next program you'll see DEEP introduce is to try and introduce organic recycling. And that's going to be difficult to do because odor issues, vector issues, it's problematic. What's organic? Mostly kitchen waste. Mostly. Yeah. I rest my case. Well,
But then you compost it. Well, you put it in your own garden, or you do it at home.
no, they would pick it up
Well, you could do it picking it up, yes.
and they'll make
But that would be
methane.
another expense.
Yeah,
They'll make methane and then
yeah.
as well.
They'll take and they'll, you know, if someone wants to build a conversion plant to make methane, they have one in Bridgeport now. I don't know how successful it is, but until these things become economical,
Even when they're economical, they will still be inconvenient unless people are committed to do it. And that's tough. I mean, we've had this conversation where my in-laws live out in farms in central Pennsylvania. They recycle, they compost anything organic. You have to live with a little container on the kitchen counter that organics go into. It's okay when you don't open the lid. But they don't have garbage pickup. They got to figure out what to do with it all on their own. So anything that can be burnt is burnt, anything that can be composted is composted, and the rest eventually gets put in the back of a pickup truck and hauled to a dump. So, and some of it is recycled, like the metals, but, we're not used to that, but there are places that do it. I do not ever anticipate it's going to have a high participation rate here in Trumbull. But I do wonder, and this we have talked about, if there's any way to look into some state programs or state grants or environmental group grants where we could do more education in the schools. We've always said if we can get kids excited about and understanding recycling, you want to grab Alan?
okay?
It's leveled off now, yeah. Then you might be able to get parents to do more. And some of it is an education issue of understanding.
Well, I mean, the Board of Education is probably the most appropriate place to have that discussion.
Yeah.
They have to have parents who desire to engage in sounder environmental practices. And, you know, if they needed handouts or programmatic backup, I'm sure that they can go to DEEP and
We had the recycling director,
yeah,
that was part of her job.
yeah.
She went into the schools.
Well, and they still do stuff, at least at my son's school, they have a green team
Mhm.
about recycling and I don't know what else, but.
Well, I know the town has a one sheet of what you can and you cannot recycle. And a lot of people aren't necessarily aware of that. And even if we could give that out at the schools, I mean, we joke, but
Yeah,
my
we get that.
recycling bin goes down every week and I couldn't get everything in it this week.
Well, look,
So it's
we
sitting in
get
my
that from
garage.
DEEP. I mean, we don't,
Okay.
that isn't our.
That's not even ours.
No, we just pass it out. And yeah, there are resources federally and on the state level that you could tap into. Your question about teaching children at a young age that this is important is something that has to be done at the elementary school level. I mean, that's a proven method of getting parents to recycle. When the child comes home and says, you know, you can't throw that away, that's recyclable, they'll do it because they want to be. Okay, so, and that's really where it starts. We tried it. I don't think we ever demonstrated a big increase in recycling, but, you know, it was a nascent program, and you know, I really think it's something that has to occur in the schools, and it ought to be a program that the schools want to adopt. I mean, it's a science-related program, and that's where it has to start.
Okay. Yes, Brian.
How much profit does the town make on this recycling?
Can't be that much. Yeah, I mean, if they're charging $175 to haul it away and you're only making $350 on
We
the
make about
truck.
$100,000 a year.
100,000 a year?
Yeah.
And so,
The market, the budget is 360.
Yeah, but,
There's other issues,
Yeah.
other items.
I mean, on the recyclables, on the single-stream recycling, we make money on metal. You know, years back, it was $300 a ton, now it's 80.
with all the metals, the plastics, all that kind of stuff?
No, just the plastics and a single stream, we generate about $100,000 a year revenue. Metal is about $80,000 a year. Yeah, the other things are fee-based.
And then also, there's been some talk next year of raising the garbage fees at each house by $100. Is there any truth to any of that kind of stuff?
It's not in my budget.
There were 10 cents, you want to do 10 cents instead of 5 cents as a state. But then I guess, I don't know if that was a discussion, but that's their way of getting business, bring bottles back.
It's not, it's their way of collecting more money. Has nothing to do with incentivizing recycling. It has to do with doubling a tax, because most of them aren't returned and the state gets back what isn't returned. So if you don't collect your 5 cents, they do. So when you don't collect your 10, they'll get 10. So they're looking at double what they make. And I'm all for recycling, and I'm not saying that's a bad idea, except it's just another way for the state to bleed me. And right now, I am looking at a budget that bleeds me to the point where I may be on life support. Okay. Done with recycling, Inland Wetlands Commission? Yes, please.
Just to follow up with Roy's comment, there is an additional revenue item in the disposal area of $1 million. Maybe we'll talk about that later. Is that something you know about?
It's not in my budget.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but just for the people that may be watching, in the front page of your budget, there's an allocation for the three towns, 60, 40, 10, 60 Trumbull, 40 Monroe, and 10 to Easton, I believe. So the budget here is just our 60% share
Yes.
of the budget.
Well, no. That's the total budget, correct? All right. And then there'll be a revenue that we receive from the,
Where's,
Well, no,
I don't think
no,
so.
the 1,700 tons are just ours. This is just our piece of the budget.
1,700 tons is ours, but there's another line item here that talks about,
The cost of operating the transfer station?
yeah, isn't that all in this?
Are you talking about the special agency account?
No, I'm talking about the cost to operate the transfer station. That's entirely in this budget, isn't it?
The personnel.
No, the contract that we have.
The salaries and overtime, that's not just our portion of the salary, that's the entire salary for running
Right.
the transfer station. And then so some of the items are the entire thing of which we get a revenue back. Some are just our share.
And is that revenue reflected in our revenue account?
Yes.
That 300 and some odd $1,000, is that
Yes.
portion coming back from Monroe and Easton?
Yes.
Can we get a breakdown of what that is?
Do you want Diana to do that?
Diana could do that.
Okay. So you would like a one-year experience?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can give her that report that you give me every month? That shows,
But the services and fees, the 522204, those are all only our expenses.
right,
Whereas the salaries, the overtime, the longevity, the uniform are for all three towns, and then we divvy it out.
right, we send them a bill.
Okay.
So if you could just give us something that tells us which is the towns, which we divvy out.
Yeah, we have a report every month that we do. We have, and we,
I know you bill them monthly, so.
yes,
But it is a little confusing because some are all ours, like
Right.
hazardous waste is ours,
Ours.
because that's just our day.
salary is ours, but we
Well,
bill
but then we
that.
bill out some.
And by the way, we invite them to Hazardous Waste Day, and we bill them per
Okay,
car
for
for
their
that
piece.
also.
So if you could just tell us which pieces.
Yes,
I know that the other is all ours.
we'll give you a 12-year experience. We have that done.
12-month.
12-month, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's all right. I knew what you meant.
I know you did.
Okay, any other questions on that? Inland wetlands then is on 135. Oh, I'm sorry, Ted, I
I'm
apologize.
sorry, Jen, before we let you go. Trees did an audit of the transfer station. I thought it was interesting. Have you seen that? And there were a series of recommendations as part of that. Have you considered any of the recommendations, or have you implemented any of those recommendations that came out of that audit?
You know, we collaborated on that. What were some of the major recommendations?
Software for the,
Yeah.
weighing map.
Yeah, there were some cash issues, collection issues. Maria and I have discussed, and we're working on trying to get some kind of card reader there. People don't always show up with cash, both there and down at the yard when they come to pick up any toters or anything, or get their tickets for bulky waste delivery. So
The
Would-
bigger issue, John, was the hauler.
the hauler fees, yeah, well, there are policy issues, and, you know, there are operational issues. The operational issues we're addressing.
One section that I've asked Therese to do a little bit of an update on is we had looked at the fees and we were comparing to other towns and looking at other options. I think that's what you're referring to. And we did discover we were not necessarily consistent. In some of the towns, it included recycling, in some it did not. And so we were not in all cases comparing apples to apples. So she's taking another look at some of those to understand what, and she sent me an update that she and I still need to talk about, and then we'll share with everyone. It may not be as disparate as it looks. The other thing was to have a conversation with some of the haulers about what they're doing, but there is a fee that is now being proposed to be put on them as well, which is what Roy is talking about. It is not in John's budget, it is in revenues. Mike, and I have some questions about that myself, because while I can tell the haulers they have to pay for what they're bringing in, I assume to some extent they will pass some of that on. My concern is, judging from the report we have, roughly 50% of the households do not use pickup service. They deliver their own. So how are we going to collect a fair share from them? Because I don't think it's appropriate to put it only on the people who use the hauling service and let the others slide by, which means there will either be, we have to discuss whether they have to come get dump tickets and get weighed, or they buy a pass for the year and that gets them in. But there's a lot involved in that on the revenue side. And neither of it is his problem, because he hasn't proposed it, and as he pointed out, it's not in his budget, but it is in ours, in the sense that the revenues are ours. So I think there's a number of questions about how that's done. Okay? Just what you were really asking? All right. So I'm going to try once again. Can we get to inland wetlands on 135, which I believe is just a commission with its clerk and really not any other expenses, but refresh my memory. Yeah, it's in one on 135. Basically, their biggest is their communications and their legal notices.
So I've got Bill Marr here, who's the town engineer who is the expert on inland wetlands, and he can explain to you what the elements of that budget reflect.
That's fine, and that's really the only, because everything else is a clerk fee, they are a commission. I would like to say that I attended one of the hearings when they were considering an affordable housing project that was 20-something units on 3 acres or 4 acres. And I was very impressed with all the prep work that the staff did to help the commission, not being an engineer, and I was impressed by how thought out their questions were and what they posed to the developer and the level to which they went to protect the town. So I would just like to say, as an observer, I was very impressed with that.
Thank you.
But please, that's the biggest item, is that $13,000 on a $17,000 budget.
And it speaks about fees, things that can use the general fund, are the fees, for the most part, offsetting the legal notices?
There's an application fee that is paid, but that not accounted for here.
I guess the question is, the application fee, do we believe that it is sufficient to cover the costs of processing the application?
No, not necessarily. The advertising portion on a smaller application doesn't cover the publishing.
Is it a flat fee for the application, or does it vary depending on the size of the project?
It does vary on the size of the project. It depends on the square footage of the area that's being impacted. But for most of the applications that we get are small applications for a home addition or something like that.
Okay.
It barely covers.
And if someone puts in an application and then for whatever reason, as problems arise, they withdraw it, they start all over again when they put in a new one,
Yes, they do.
and the fees start all over again.
They do.
Okay. Any questions? I mean, part of it is the publications, which we all know we can't control. We have that problem in the town council. We have that problem anywhere. We have to have public notice. The state has decided electronic on our website is not sufficient, which is probably some days, I think, the only thing keeping newsprint in business. Because if we didn't have to put our stuff in the newspaper, yeah, well, I'm sure they fight when the state tries to change it, but, I mean, there are days you get a newspaper and it's 15 pages long, and it's like, you gotta be kidding me. And 10 pages are advertising. But we do not have a choice unless the General Assembly in its infinite wisdom chooses to allow us to publish it on our website, which is certainly easier for most people. We would probably, my God, Maria, what's in this budget, $50,000 worth of public notice? Probably more. Probably more. So perhaps the governor could become enlightened and get rid of some unfunded mandates like that one. Anybody have any questions on inland wetlands? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Town engineer. And I know you said Frank was away.
So we'll do our best to, you have the budget?
I guess my question is, should we do it, or are we better to do the WPCA in that when Frank is back? Although I don't know, we'd have to put him on one of the nights when we have the Board of Ed.
Well, Bill is the administrator for the WPCA,
Oh,
so
okay.
he's available to answer any questions about that.
Great.
Unless there's some,
Okay. Let's take a
So,
quick look at it. If
yeah.
there's something we cannot answer
then we're
now,
happy to come back.
we can either come back or ask Frank to address. So,
May I ask?
go ahead, please.
My understanding from the bonding of the capital plan that was approved by town council a couple weeks ago, Daniel's Farm was removed from that, and I guess it will be included in Strobel next year. What impact does that have?
Look, that corridor, when we start there, is gonna be nightmarish.
And I live right off it. I know it's gonna be horrible.
There's, it's like telling the doctor to take your appendix out, but I don't want any discomfort, I don't want any scar, I don't want. We have Moose Hill Road, Strobel Road, widening of Daniel's Farm, drainage throughout Daniel's Farm, and paving of all of that. Traffic signal, turning lanes. We're gonna do it once, we're gonna do it right, but it's gonna be disruptive. So what we're trying to do, and why we're agreeing to defer Daniel's Farm, is because there's property takings on Moose Hill that have to get cleared up before we can, that's gonna be a package job with, put out to bid, $4 million. We've gotta do Strobel in segments. The first thing we have to do on Strobel is, the culvert that crosses there, and then there's gonna be some property takings there. So I don't wanna make this a 5-year nightmare. It's gonna be at least a 2-year nightmare. So if we delay the drainage on Daniel's Farm Road, it doesn't have a big impact. It's probably prudent to do that. But it's on the radar screen. We've got a lot of money invested in that already in underground investigation and the like.
And you quickly mentioned a light. In fairness, I'm not for it. But that would be at the corner of Strobel and Daniel's Farm.
Yes.
Will that be adjusted based on school time, alleviating the need for a cop there, or will a cop still be there? And also with the discussion of putting an exit or entrance on, what road is that?
25 extension.
To 25 from Whitney? Would that alleviate the need for a light in that area as well?
No. And we've done the traffic counts. You've got 3 schools on Daniel's Farm Road. I mean, that's just a fact. And, that's the main artery from the northern part of town on that side of the valley to the highway. The traffic counts, those are the facts.
So will police officers still be needed there?
I think so, but, you have SROs at all these schools. There's no reason why they couldn't collaborate with traffic in the police department to make some sense of all of that. But
I don't disagree with that, but my only point is if a cop still has to be there to direct traffic, is there then a need for a traffic light to then also direct traffic?
well, at times, other than the peak periods, is probably smart. I mean, we did a traffic count. We never calculated the speed that people come down Daniels Farm Road. You widen the road, and it's automatic that people kind of speed up. Yeah, it's only a lane, but it would, it would be a couple 100 feet. We have to have new sightline creation there so that you could see the appropriate distance when you're sitting at the light. And yes, no. But what we're talking about is off peak. When you see a wider road, you just go faster. It's just human nature. Go look at Merritt Boulevard. And it's like a raceway. It's 40 feet wide. Okay?
Any other questions on the town engineer? Anything we want them to bring back? Okay, then we have the WPCA, which is 379, which is under tab 9, nope, 10, excuse me.
I'm sorry, I do have one question on that town engineer, under the services and fees. It was reduced by $10,000 by the first selectman, so I just wanted to know what the impact might be on some of the costs. You have $5,000 for scanning documents. Not sure what that's for.
This scanning documents is going paperless on some of our, we have a large amount of files, and we've been scanning some of the older documents into a database so that we can access them instead of storing them.
Okay, what would be the impact of the $10,000 reduction by the first selectman?
It's probably a better question for Frank to answer for you.
Let's highlight that. What line item is it?
It's 522202, services and fees professional.
Okay.
And they identified as professional assistants.
Yeah, there's a gray area here where fees could be considered project costs or not, especially when you get into the area of LOSIP, DEEP applications. If you have a project that's associated with, the project cost could be taken by that. But I will have Frank send you a memo that will
And last year's actual according to budget were at 47,000, but it was only budgeted for 27,500. So,
yeah, I don't know what he has on the drawing board that might cause him to increase that budget, but we will get that to you.
Okay. So we are on 381 is the first page of the WPCA budget. We have salaries they requested, seasonal temps. So it appears that all the excuse me, newly negotiated rates are now in here as opposed to being in flux.
Well, yeah, the newly, but there's still, Bridgeport sets their fee in June. So that fee is not, if there's an increase, it's not in here.
Okay.
Will there be an increase for next year?
And there's the usage fee from Bridgeport?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you at this point.
There are a couple of items that I have a question on in the capital outlay, and not really clear that they are capital outlays. Okay, because first of all, it's a giant increase, but some of them don't seem like capital to me. Like updates to the GIS. Not sure how that's a capital outlay. Because I assume that's software.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I was gonna speak to the larger projects, I'm not sure if that would be all right. Larger projects, the commission decided that they were gonna use their surplus, their retained earnings is substantial. Unfortunately, I don't have that,
I-
and they decided to do major projects with that funding, and, so they approved to do that instead of bond.
Right, so some of these items ought to come out of here, correct?
No, they should be here. They are in here.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. They're going to use it as a capital outlay instead of bonding.
Instead of bonding. And I get them.
You're right. They did say that. And also, I understand, is their audit finished?
They are doing, updated to audit, to financial audit or the specific audit.
Financial audit,
This financial audit is done,
okay.
yearly audit.
Can we get copies of that?
This is for the entire general fund, the whole town.
So the WPCA is in that.
There's a portion, I will provide you that copy.
Give us the WPCA portion, please. I know Andy has asked for it in the past.
We can't get copies of those audit reports, I know they're online.
They're online, I could get.
You can have the whole audit report if you want, but for this particular,
Is that, just a second, ask a question.
go ahead.
I know there's two accounts, I don't recall the 59 account,
59 fund, yeah.
and there's another one.
This is a 20.
And that's what this is being taken out of that 20 account?
Correct, this is the operation, the 59 is the construction, which related to just the construction of the sewer system.
Right, and the 20 account, so that's funded by
User
user
fees.
fees? Okay. And the 59 account?
It was funded from bonding and payment through the assessment.
Okay, any other questions on WPCA? Okay. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, sir. It's all your departments. And now we're in the fire marshal, public safety, fire marshal, page 183. Probably in section 2. Yeah. Section 2, 183. Yeah, you can choose to stand at the podium, sit down if you prefer, but either way, please hang on to a mic.
I'm good. Can you hear me?
All right, we can hear you.
Okay.
Great.
I know it's ugly, but there's not much I can do about it. So we'll start with, I put in for a part-time person, which the first selectman removed. I desperately need the position. I wouldn't ask for it if I didn't need it. I need this individual to help with fire prevention activities, as well as covering on-call, doing inspections, doing licensing inspections. Again, I understand that between the budget cuts that have cut down from the state and the significant increases in my budget this year, that it was an easy thing to take out. The one thing I'm asking is if you cannot refund the part-time position, if you could please then put money into my seasonal account so that at least during times of crisis in the office, when we're completely underwater, at least I can call in somebody per diem to come in and give us a hand for a couple of weeks. We have a significant number of projects that are coming up that are on very, very tight timeframes that have to be completed, and I'm very concerned about having enough staff to try covering everything. Overtime, I increased to 18,000, basically because if you can see my overtime budget already, I'm negative $5,000 and we're only in February. A couple reasons for that. A, it has been since July absolutely insane with emergency call-outs. We've done 277 hours of overtime man-hours since July. 125 hours of that have been for fire investigations. 97 hours were billable, so we were able to recoup some money on that. That has not been reflected yet in the budget. And then we had 55 hours spent on other emergencies for hoarding, bomb threats, suspicious packages, hazmat incidents, fire alarm and sprinkler problems. This is the first year where we have 3-hour minimum callback in our contract. So I wasn't able to fully estimate what it would be for number-wise, but that's why I bumped it up to 18,000 next year. I'd rather have more than enough than have to come back for a supplemental. I'll be seeing you in July for a supplemental to take care of the negative balance that we have in overtime already. It's been an insane year. We've never had this many house fires in the history that I've been doing this. Normally, we have between 2 and 3 major house fires a year. We've had over 16 in the year. I have tried to study to see if we're missing something with fire prevention, which is why I really want to try and put together a serious fire prevention program for the town to hit all different age groups, because the reasons for the fires have been everything from electrical to a cat knocking over a candle to generators not being used properly and starting houses on fire. They've been a wide range of causes. We do a really good job with fire prevention in the elementary schools. We actually had a 4th grader win the fire prevention poster contest at the local level and is now going on to compete at the county and state level. But I really would like to find a way to try and hit more of the older population, the 30 and up, the elderly. The majority of the fires that we're seeing are people who are between, say, 30 and 60. And I just want to try and target that more. I feel it's really, really important. Unfortunately, I don't have the staffing to do it right now, which is one of the main reasons why I had requested the part-time position, so that I could help get that person out there doing more fire prevention activities in the community. So again, back to overtime, that was why I increased it up to the 18,000. I can't predict emergencies, so I don't know what next year will bring. Honestly, I hope it's not nearly as busy as it has been these past 7 months. But again, I don't know. Everything else, the next couple line items remain the same. The other big increase you'll see was for the publications account. You'll be seeing me next month for a supplemental, don't shoot me. The infinite wisdom of the state of Connecticut decided at the last minute to adopt a new fire code. So this is the first time we've adopted a new fire code since December 31st, 2005. They decided in September that they were going to adopt a new fire code and put it into effect in October. And now they are going to adopt another new fire code for next October. So I had to buy all new code books this year, and now I have to buy all new code books next year. And then I also have my annual NFPA renewal for publication. So that's why that increased drastically for next year. The other ones that you'll see that increased significantly were the maintenance repair for equipment. I'm gonna try and explain this properly, but radios are not my thing, so I brought Alex, so if you have any specific radio questions, I will transfer it over to him. We both have PD radios in our car. Well, let me rephrase. We both have them. One has to be upgraded. PD is giving us one of the radios to put into Alex's car. I have a newer one in my car. So you'll see that there's $600 for installation of that second radio. Then both radios need to have what are called firmware upgrades, software upgrades, so that they will work properly and that they will work on the new PD radio frequency. So that is that breakdown for that one. It is $600 for the installation of the radio, and then it is $1,788.75 for each radio for the software upgrade. And then if you'll see under capital outlay, I requested $700 for a video camera for documenting fire scenes. The state has really recommended that we start videotaping fire scenes to be used in court. And then the two big ones are $15,909 and $20,500. This is for the cost of the new radios and new portables that will work on the new fire frequency. The 3 fire districts are putting a new fire frequency in. The radios that we have right now will not work on that. It's a completely different frequency. Right now we talk on 3356, so we're going to be going to a 400 band. So this cost is to replace the radios in the cars, installation, and things like that, so that we can communicate with the fire department.
So it looks like you're getting 8 new, is that right?
I'm sorry?
8 new radios?
No, the,
1,000 for 4 and 20,000.
right, the 15,000 is for our portable radios, so when we're in our building, they're the radios that we talk on. And then the 20,500 is for radios that are in our cars. The ones that are hardwired into our cars.
So if I look at this right, we have 3 employees, and with all the different pieces for radios, we're looking at $40,586. Okay,
Yep,
yeah, okay. Just wanted to be sure I was clear.
yes.
Because the reality is, we cannot afford it this year. This is not coming out of this board in all likelihood. So we need to be creative and figure out some alternatives. This is a huge increase for 1 year. And the fire companies may have decided to change something, but they have a different taxing authority. And now they've just cost us a lot of money by switching over, so.
The problem is I completely agree with you. The problem is if I don't buy new radios, I can't communicate with them.
So do the portable ones not work? I mean, why can't
The
you-
portable ones work in buildings because you have to activate repeaters. It's your portable radios feed back through your mobile radios and then bounce out. Any other questions
on this budget?
How many houses caught fire?
16 in
16?
16 in 2016.
And how about last year? How many was it last year?
In 2015, and not going calendar year, not fiscal year, 2015, I believe we had 4. It has been since July, we were having a major house fire every 2 weeks for like a 4-month period. It was insane.
You said the state changed the code twice in the last 12 months?
They changed the code October 1st. And now they're changing the code again because
State clearly has too many employees with time on their hands,
the problem is that we,
or ineffective ones that didn't get it right the first time.
well, that's exactly what it was. They were supposed to be updating the code every 3 years, and we are now 12 years behind in code upgrades. So now they're trying to catch up every year to try and get us to where we need to be, because we are so far behind the 8 ball.
In reality, they should take 2 years, do it right once. And not do it every year.
Basically, that was the gripe from the locals to the state was, I don't know, why are you doing this? Just go right to the 2017 code. And the issue is that the changes are so drastic between the 2005 code and the 2017 code that they just couldn't do it. They said it wouldn't be fair to all the business owners and everything else. So now they're doing this
So
piecemeal.
business owners, even if they're not doing any work, have to come up to code?
Yes and no. When they do their existing inspections, depending upon what the existing stuff is, they may have to bring it up to code. But anytime they do any work, any new renovations, anything like that, everything has to be brought up.
Right, but that was typical in anything, whether it's business or residential. If you leave it alone, you're not changing anything, but as soon as you go to change something, then all the codes apply.
Yeah. And it's a nightmare on our part. We're now literally inspecting, we have to go figure out when a building was built so that we can figure out what code we're inspecting it to. And next year, it's gonna just throw another one on. It's ludicrous, and it makes no sense.
Why would you inspect a building that wasn't doing any new work? You would just have to inspect an existing building anyway?
Yes, under the fire code, everything except 1 and 2 family dwellings, and even now that's changing, falls under the jurisdiction of the fire marshal. So every single business in this town has to be inspected annually by my office, whether it's doing work or not. We go in and inspect it to make sure that it's compliant with the fire code.
Is it, okay, but is it any, excuse me, any type of a business? So there's an office building and you have to inspect it annually?
Yeah, so like all those stores over there, all have to be inspected annually.
Stores people come in and out of, so I
Yep.
get. But an
Office buildings,
building,
yep.
if nothing is changed, what gets?
What do we look for?
Yeah, if the code hasn't changed, and the building was built in, pick a year, 2010.
Yep.
When it was built, you inspected it, it passed. It now complied with the 2010 code.
We go back in to check emergency lightings, make sure they're having their fire alarm tested, their sprinkler tested, their generator tested. We'll check all their door hardware. We'll check and make sure their doors are still closing and latching. We'll make sure that their means of egress are still clear, that they haven't done any construction without us knowing about it. That's now done something to impede life safety. We check storage height to make sure they're not, piling papers in closets too high to sprinkler heads. Just check for any type of electrical safety. So we have to, that's why we inspect. I mean, I have over 1,000 buildings that I have to inspect annually. And it's not usually just one inspection. It's, we go in, we do the inspection, we write an inspection report, send them the abatement letter that tells them their fire code violations, and then we have to go back. The chances of them usually having all their stuff done in one shot, very slim. So then we have to go back again, and again. That's it's a lot more work. See, the building department's very fortunate. Once they seal a building and they bless it, they're done with it. They don't go back in until they come and pull a permit. I go back into that building every single year.
And is there a fee to them for that?
For some, yes. If they require a state license form for us to sign off on, then there is a fee, and that's part of our fee schedule. So for example, healthcare facilities such as 5520 Park Avenue, St. Joe's Manor, Mayfair, all those, they have to pay a fee. Although residential group homes in town, they have to pay a fee. Anybody who has a liquor license has a fee that they pay. But just the normal 35 Corporate Drive office building does not pay a fee because it's state mandated that we do it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
The idea that you have to go back once a year, is that a state law or something? What is
Yes,
that?
state law, state statute.
So they keep on, the state up there keeps on coming up with all kinds of new ideas.
Well, as far as annual inspections, this has been how it has been since well before I became, a fire marshal. They've tried to come up with different ideas and different ways how to handle it, but this is how it is. This is just one of the many things that we end up doing, so.
I know it's out of your control, but
Yeah.
updating the requirements one year after the other just seems like absurd, because it won't help the business owners, because then they very well could have to do the same upgrades
It doesn't,
similarly twice, because you tweak them slightly.
it doesn't help us either. I mean, we spent weeks trying to get a grasp on this new code and trying to understand it, and now they're gonna change it again on me. I mean,
Before you're even finished, probably upgrading from
exactly. It's
way to waste time and money.
a nightmare.
If someone does have a violation and you send them an abatement letter, the second inspection is also free?
Yes. Yep. All the inspections.
What
are free.
prevents us from changing that?
I guess nothing. I don't know if there's any state laws that would prohibit us from charging for inspections.
One's free. You didn't do it, we gotta come back. Maria, can you check and see if there can be a fee if there is anything violation found and we have to come back a second time?
Not a new one, but not fixing the original one.
Well, no, you come in and I have a violation. You send me a letter, I have to fix the violation. Now I have just to go back to prove they fixed it.
I just want to be clear, let's just say it's paper stacked up to the ceiling. I'd hate to, my only point is, if there's paper stacked up to the ceiling, you say it has to come down or whatever, then it comes down, then you go in, they fix your issue, but now you see another one because now what was blocking it.
But she's not looking for another one now.
But you can't ignore it if it's.
Well, unless it's blatantly obvious, but
My only point is, you shouldn't have to, the business owner shouldn't have to pay because they didn't see it the first time, because it was blocked by the issue.
that wasn't what I was talking about.
I know, but I'm just saying if they have to come back multiple times, it should be, if we're gonna charge a fee, it should be for not solving the original issue. I'm making sense.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Oh, no, you're saying not solving it.
Right, like I would hate to put undue burden onto our businesses by hitting them repeatedly because we didn't.
Well, but if you had something, following your logic, I couldn't see it because you had one violation in front of it, which means now I have another violation to give you and I have to come back a third time.
I don't know, it's,
You know,
to me, it's a fine line, but
yeah. I'm looking for revenue here.
I know.
I'm looking for revenue. Violate a code, they have to come back again. It shouldn't be on the rest of the taxpayers. It's just one person's opinion.
Just one more comment, if I may, in regards to the radio system for the fire department. The radio system is failing, which is why this is now an urgency to get this done. It's becoming a real safety issue for fire ground operations because the system it's so antiquated and so old, it is literally failing.
Okay, but the other thing is we wouldn't need 4, we'd only need 3. We only have 3 full-time employees.
Right, the other one, usually I used to having a backup if you want to cut out.
They're
It's
brand new.
2,500 if you want to cut that out for one more, to go down to 3 and 3.
The answer may be no. I'm actually sure it is. But because this is a police radio, could we use the police special agency fund for radios?
No.
Even though it's not for the police, but it's one of their
They're
radios?
special, it's not for them. It has no relationship whatsoever to special detail. We stretch the cars. Okay, any other questions? If not, my dreaded fire hydrants, which I will just move on past. Or for the purposes of those who do not know and have a history, we are required to pay for every fire hydrant you see, whether or not it is opened for the 4 fires last year or the 16 this year. It has nothing to do with water use. It is merely their existence. And so, besides getting crazy over it, I at least hope that because we have them, homeowners benefit on their homeowners insurance because they're right nearby.
They do.
They do. Because they always ask, one of the questions on your insurance is, how far are you from the hydrant? It's a lot of money, but then so are streetlights, my other favorite thing. So there's nothing we do about it. They count them up, they send us a bill, we pay the bill. I'm just not sure why it's increasing so much. Are they charging us more for water, or do we have more hydrants?
I can't answer because I don't even get the, I
Right,
used to
yeah,
get the
it's, but
hydrant
it's-
forms
it's-
come through my office and I don't even get them anymore.
It's close to $100,000, $80,000. I'm getting a little carried away with myself.
There's been a couple of municipalities, but it doesn't seem like
80,000 seems like a lot, so they're probably charging us more for the water.
So there's also 75,000 more the year before.
Yeah, we've gone from $1,370,000 to $1,461,000. So it's about an 8,000 increase, which has, I realize you didn't even see the bill. It's got nothing to do with you. Okay? All right. Thank you both very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate your time. Okay. All right. We are on general government. I do not see Mary Ellen, so,
Yeah, Mary Ellen did email me that she couldn't get off work to come.
okay.
Are we okay with the budget as presented?
Okay, so for just 1 second, then we'll take the first selectman, page 139. Just before tab 2, it's just a commission with clerical fees, communication fees, exactly what it was last year, $1,375. If anyone has a question, we'll be happy to forward it to Mary Ellen. I'm guessing no. Okay, so Maria will hold off on the town council, or that's page 3. Actually, we'll just do it because it's real quick. I am. It's on page 4 where the real information is. It's exactly the same. Well, actually, a little less.
We're going out to bid for the auditor.
Okay.
Been here 5 years, so we're going out to bid. So at this point, I don't know if these will come out to bid, but we the same as last year.
Okay,
So that's the only item that really changed.
okay. And if it changes, then they'll have to come for supplemental because we won't know, probably have the bid by then. But we ought to think about going out to bid in a time frame that lets us have it for our budget.
We're looking at it right now, I'm not sure it'll be enough. Ideally, the town council,
Well, but they can't raise it, so if it's not sufficient, there's nothing they can do about it. We have to have it by our deadline. Okay. All right, so now we're on First Selectman, page 15.
Good morning.
Good morning. You have 2 options. You can sit down and we'll hook up that microphone as long as you hold it close, or the one on the podium seems to be working a little bit better for everyone.
What's your preference?
None at all. We have none, so whatever you're more comfortable with, and as
Okay.
long as we can hear you.
Okay. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Board of Finance and the Town Council. I'm here this morning to answer any questions you might have. I have with me my Chief of Staff, Lynn Arnow. So I thought what would be the best exercise, because you've received my transmittal letter in addition to the entire budget, is to open the floor to you and see if you have any questions. First Selectman's office is pretty straightforward, but I know that I usually get questions beyond that, so I'll just open the floor to you and see if you have any questions.
Well, I have a question. Now that the annex is gonna be vacant in a couple months, what kind of plans do you have to use that annex?
Okay. As I indicated in my transmittal letter, when I talked about a community center, I talked about in the next month, we were going to be announcing a plan that would address not only that, but also the municipal campus and facilities. So we currently have, as you all know, space constraints in this building. So we are completing construction of the new building in the highway department that I'm sure you've seen going up and down Churchill Road. It's close to the gas pumps. It's towards the front. That will house certain divisions of highway. We've completed a renovation to not only construction of the new building, which is close to completion, we've completed a renovation to the existing highway garage. We put in lockers, showers, which is really important for the employees, especially when they're working long shifts, dealing with snowstorms and things of that nature. So when we complete the construction of the new building, a lot of the highway divisions will relocate there. Mr.